Welcome, Middlers, to the Medium in the Middle podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I take you on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual exploration. I am a Reiki master teacher, a spiritual and business mentor, and of course, a psychic medium. And I am here to share my story and help you tap into your extraordinary abilities. Join me every Wednesday as we dive into the realms of intuition, energy healing, and all things mystical. Whether you're a seasoned spiritual seeker or just dipping your toes into the magical waters, this podcast is your go-to source for inspiration, guidance, and a whole lot of lessons and laughter along the way. Let's get started. Hello. Welcome to episode 210. It is me with my voice back. My name is Stephanie. I am the medium in the middle. And I am no longer congested. Last week I had to do something I haven't had to do in a very long time, and I had to cancel clients. I was too much of a snotty mess to go into work, and it was so difficult, but as an entrepreneur, like letting people down, canceling, all of the things that go with it. But I am proud that in 4 years of business, I've only had to cancel on someone or like call in sick to work 3 times, and each time has been like very bad. I can do work pretty sick. I can be a shell of a human being and still do a good job, but as soon as I'm like snotty or sneezing or anything like that, so I don't get sick very often. I was down and out. I slept all day, and then I've been getting better ever since. So thank you, body. I appreciate you. Just a reminder, I know it's hard, especially when you work for yourself, but I knew that if I didn't take that day off work, I would have been sick for my Reiki training that I just taught this weekend, and that is much harder to reschedule than a few in-person clients. So I'm better, I'm back, and I have a fun story for you today about what happened when I was in Mexico, and drunk Steph was full of margaritas, handing out palm readings at the bar. Do not recommend, but it's still a good story, so we're going to talk about it today. And I also just have a few like glitch in the matrix story that we have to talk about it. We just have to. So that's what I have for you today. We are going to start today with the card pull. Again, I pulled it on Instagram with you guys. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at Medium in the Middle. I pull the card every week on live. You can vote or just follow along. I post a lot of stuff on there. So I pulled the card 30, making a choice. You are required to come to a decision now. You're faced with a dilemma or a fork in the road, and you must make a conscious choice regarding the next action. Whatever that choice is, you must take responsibility for it, yet you needn't be afraid. You may not have all the answers right now because the way ahead can't be known until you've embarked and traveled a few steps. Trust your intuition. Ask for a sign from spirit and you'll be led to the right path. If you remain conscious and aware, your choice will be the right one at this time. Life is always about learning. Success lies in choosing consciously, guided by intuition and spirit. Ooh, this card to me means like take action. Let's go. Make the choice now. Stop ignoring your intuition. This card to me means you already know the answer. You're avoiding it. Do it. Do it now. Stop wasting time. Not very many other ways to say that. Go, move forward. Take the step. I find people know the choice. They know the answer to their question, or they know the choice they have to make, and they just sit in indecision so much longer than they need to. And I'm guilty of this too, but just this card is go now, go, now. Make your choice. Okay, for announcements, we have Reiki trainings coming up in April. I have 1 spot left in my Reiki level 2 next weekend, April 6th and 7th. I don't know who it's waiting for, but if it's waiting for you, go take it. Reiki level 1 at the end of the month has a few spots left. It's filling up quickly. The monthly mediumship circle, that is happening on April 13th. If you want to join my monthly mediumship circle and practice your mediumship, And then my mentorship is opening again, and we will be starting at the end of April. It's currently half sold out, but I can accept 6 more mentees. We work together from April to July. If you are looking for a mentor in the Reiki, business development, growth, or developing your mediumship skills, those are my 3 wheelhouses. I'm really good at Reiki, mediumship, and business. So while I can help with other things, I would be best suited to work with you one-on-one over the next 3 months on those things. The springtime is always a popular time right before summer to dedicate some time for yourself. Give yourself a gift, decide you're going to work on this, hold yourself accountable. We meet every other week. We have a call every other week for 12 weeks. And just get a kickstart on your development. So I'll leave all the links down below. I will leave all the information down below. If you have any questions, you can also always message me on my website or email me, and I would be happy to answer them for you. So I want to start off this week's episode by talking about, I want to call them glitches in the Matrix, because I'm going to tell you guys what happened, and then you tell me. And it happened twice. Okay, this is what happened. Actually, before I tell this story, this is a funny story. So we had a private driver when I was in Mexico, and we just kept calling him for everything because he was amazing. Shout out to Juan. Anyways, he took us to dinner one night, and at dinner we were talking conspiracy theories. And then on the way in the car, I got on my little, we live in a matrix, everyone's a bot, blah, blah, blah. And I was telling my compost people story from like years ago, and I'm sure I shared it on the podcast or somewhere, where I realized that like for the million years I've lived on Earth, I've never seen anyone take out their compost. And the same day that I thought that thought, I saw people taking out their compost, and they like smiled at me. And anyways, it was this whole weird interaction, and I was freaking out for days about the compost people. So I was telling this compost people story in the car, being like, guys, we live in a simulation. Really going down the road. Anyways, Juan was so into it. He kept like stopping the car and being like, and then what? And then what? And he was like, no way. And we were like, yeah. Anyways, and we were trying to say like, trying to explain to him like what I do for work. And then I guess in Spanish, a witch is a bruja. So I was like, I'm a bruja. We were making all these jokes and having a great time. Anyways, so we were freaking out our driver by telling these stories, but here are 2 more stories that add to it. So when we were in the car with Juan, both of these times, I was like, I told you, compost people, and now this. Okay, so the first one, I'm just going to tell the story and you guys tell me. So the first one, so we got onto the plane, and me and the bride were in premium, and we weren't sitting together because she booked hers late. So I was sitting beside this guy right when I got on the plane, and we were just chatting a little bit, and he was like, yeah, I'm here for a bachelor party. We're going to Sayulita. And I was like, oh, I'm here for a bachelorette party. We're also going to Sayulita. So we just chatted a little bit, and then there was a ton of empty spaces, and I asked if I could move beside the bride, and they were like, yeah, like as soon as everyone's here, you guys can move. Like there's extra seats. So I moved. I sat beside the bride for the rest of the plane. Didn't think anything of it. Now, we were only in the town of Sayulita, like in town, once for a total of like 7 minutes. And Juan was picking us up at this cafe, and then 2 of the girls went to go get ice cream. So we're in the car with Juan, and we're waiting for the other girls to get ice cream. And we're on like this random side street that he just pulled into. And who do I see walking down the street? By himself, might I add. By himself. He was not with the bachelor party. The guy that I sat beside on the plane. And I was like, that's freaking weird. That's weird. And I like saw him like just in a second saw his face. And I turned around and I was like, oh my gosh, we live in a matrix. So I was like, okay, they're in Sayulita, we're in Sayulita, we're in town, they're in town. Like, it's not that crazy to think that for the 7 minutes I was in town, turning around this backside street, this man happened to walk by. Small world, but whatever. But then, now I'm in Puerto Vallarta, and it's my last night, and I'm alone. So I was sitting on the beach, and I met this couple, and we were chatting for 20 minutes. So whatever, they were like, oh, we're staying at this hotel down the road and we just got here yesterday. What do you think we should do? And I was just chatting with them. Again, normal. The next day, I'm in my taxi going to the airport and just looking out the window, and we are like blocks away from my hotel. We are like leaving Puerto Vallarta, and who do I see walking down the street? Again, by herself. Just this woman that I met the night before on the beach. And I literally stared at her and I was like, there is no freaking way that this lady that I met last night, I then saw while I was in a cab driving around somewhere where like they wouldn't be. Like, why would she be walking alone? Where's her husband? And we were like we were blocks away from the hotel. And I guess seeing the guy in Saudi Arabia really isn't that crazy, but what are the odds? Anyways, it just goes to show that, some people are bots and we're in a simulation. So I'll talk more about that later, but I was freaked out. Here's the real story while we're here. Why we're all here. So I don't suggest you do this, but everyone's going to do it once or twice. So the reason why you shouldn't do anything spiritual when you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol is because those things just take away your boundaries. So all of the things that you have curated to protect your energy, make sure that you don't pick up other people's energy, make sure that you go in and out, make sure that you are doing things properly, all of the things that your boundaries do for you, when you add in alcohol into the mix, it just takes away your boundaries and it just makes everything hard. It does make being psychic easier because all of that thinking brain goes away. And I've told stories on here of me being, at a wedding on the dance floor, drunk, just shouting to everyone, you're having a baby girl. This is going to happen to you. This is going to happen to you. And channeling and doing things. So I know you guys are going to do it. I feel like a parent. So here's just another example. So it was me and the bride, and we were out at Margaritaville or something, and we were just having our final drink. She was leaving the next day. So we had our drink, we had our guacamole, and we paid our bill, and we were about to leave. And then the bartender says, hey, do you guys want to stay for one more drink? And we were kind of like, no. And then he was like, well, those guys down there want to buy you a drink. And we were like, which guys? And they were two very good-looking men. And we were like, okay, we will stay for these guys to buy us a drink. We want a margarita to go and water. So we got our margarita to go and water. And then on cue, the guy came over and he was like, hi, you guys are beautiful. The things that guys say to you when they buy you a drink. And we were like, hi, we're leaving. And we weren't that interested in talking to these guys until they started talking, and they were actually pretty interesting. So my friend, who was the bride, was like, Steph is a psychic, or she's a medium. I forget what she said, but she alluded to, Steph is a witch. And I was like, he's like, really? And I was like, yeah. And my, little bit that I do when I want to, make a joke about what I do when I meet a man at a bar is I just say that I can read your palm. I'm like, I'm a palm reader. Give me your hand. And then I take their hand and I look deeply into their hand and I tell them some very generic stuff. I'm always like, you for sure have a mother. I see an older woman in your life. Yep. And I think she's your mother. And then they laugh. And then I'm like, no, okay, for real this time. You might also have a dad. It's 50-50 if he's still in your life. I don't know. But for sure, at one point, you had a dad. And I'll make some dumb joke like that. It's my version of a bad dad joke. It's a bad witch joke. So anyway, I do this bit quite a lot. And when she said that, I was just like, yeah, do the bit. Yeah, I read palms. And he was like, okay, read my palm. And usually I just talk shit. I just grab their palm and I will open it and rub their hand and touch their fingers and look deeply into their eyes and just make jokes. But this time I don't know why. I was like, you know what? Let me just actually read this guy's energy just for shit. He bought us a drink. And I kept trying to tell him that like I would read his palm for $50. And he was like, I'm not giving you money. And then I was like, nah, for $50, I'll read your palm. And he was like, I'm not giving you money. And then I was like, well, and then my friend was like, she's really good. I'm like, I am really good. And then he's like, okay, read my palm and we'll see. So I pull out his palm and I'm like, looking at the lines in his hand and looking at his fingers and staring at him and looking up. And I'm like, ooh, ah. And I was like, I see here you have 3 kids. He's like, I do have 3 kids. I was like, yeah, I know. And then I was like, and I see here it's 2 boys and 1 girl. And he was like, he like threw my hand. He like went back. He's like, what? He's like, what? He's like, what? He's like, I do have 2 boys and 1 girl. And I was like, yeah, I know. And then he was like freaking out. And then he's like, okay, what else? What else? So I grab his hand again. And I was like, oh, I'm like, you had a big life event that really threw like this, like something really changed there. And it happened like in the last 5 years, I would say, where life was going one way and then bam, now it's going another way. And he was like, yeah, that did happen. What else? What else? And then I just kept talking. And he was like, oh my God, that's right. Oh my God, that's right. And then my friend was sitting there and she's like, yeah, I told you she's good. Yeah, I told you. And then he like pulls out a wad of cash. He's like, okay, I'll give you money. And I was like, no, I was like, that was a joke. He's like, no, I got to give you money. He's like, that was too good. And I was like, no, I was like, I'm joking. Like, this is a bit. And anyways, we had this laugh. And then he was like, you got to do my friend. You got to do my friend. And I was like, oh. So then his other super good looking, super tall friend comes over and he's like, this girl's going to read your palm. And his friend's like, what? He's like, this girl's going to read your palm. And I was like, oh, shoot. So then I'm doing the whole other friend and I'm not as accurate with this guy. I did get a few good points and he's like, how do you know that? And I was in there and the other guy sitting in the back yelling, she's so good. She's so good. And I was like, this is actually my job, not palm reading, but kind of. Anyways, and it was just so funny. And we just had the best laugh, but I don't know what it is about me. In a few drinks, when a man wants to know what I do, I always say I'm a palm reader. But what I'm doing is I'm not reading your palm. Actually, for the first guy, there was a lot of information in his palm, but I still believe it's energy. I'm just reading your energy. The same way you can come into my office, I'm like, oh, you have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. I can just do that by touching your hand. So do I believe in palm readers? Like, yeah, I'm sure the lines on my hands can tell you about my energy, but it's energy. So when I hold someone's hand, usually I'll just pick up on 1 or 2 things just to be like, oh my gosh, you're right. And then I ask for $50 as a joke. But I'm reading energy. I'm not actually reading your palm. So there's a party trick for you if you want to go try it out and make people laugh. I have had people like insist that they give me money. So I think total I've made like $20 off of this. So it could be a business. But anyways, I had to tell that funny story. I even told him, I was like, hey, you're going to be on the podcast. Like, I'm going to make this a podcast episode. This is funny. And I gave him my card. So if he is listening, he's probably not, but happy birthday, sir. It was his birthday. And yeah, that's my story of having too many margaritas and pulling out my favorite party trick over in Mexico. A much funner and lighthearted story than me falling on the sidewalk, scraping my knees, my hands, my foot, because I refused to listen to my intuition that my shoe was going to break. How annoying. And it's funny because I'm back home now and I have this other pair of shoes that I really want to throw out. And I just like can't bring myself to throw them away. And I need to because they're just like a million years old and donezo. But there's this thing about like using your shit. I am always talking about use your shit, light your candles, use your face mask, use your fancy perfume, wear the shoes, wear the shirt, stop saving things for later. And I've been working on that for like years, like using stuff. But the next part of like using stuff is like throwing it out because I find that I will use it, but then I'll save the last little bit. I'm like, oh, there's only a little bit left in this bottle, or there's only a little bit left of this. So same thing with shoes. I'm like, hey, you've had these shoes for 8 years. You wear them every day. They used to be, beige. Now they're brown. Throw them away. You look awful. But I'm like, but they're still fine. Why would I throw away shoes that just look really dirty and smell really bad? So it's always a work in progress. rechanging your limiting beliefs or changing your limiting beliefs, working on mindsets that you've had for a long time. I don't have to make shampoo, toothpaste, whatever last forever. Just use it. Use it. Use it. Don't, oh, I'm just going to use a little bit. Oh, I want to save some for later. Oh, I'm just going to split this and make it last another week. Just finish the toothpaste, throw it away, open a new one. I know this seems simple, but it's limiting beliefs run deep. So anyways, that's what I have for you on this week's podcast. I hope it gave you a little laugh, a little fun story of what it's like being a psychic out in the wild, doing wild things. If you want to register for a Reiki class, register for the Practice Mediumship Circle that I host monthly, or if you would like to work with me in my mentorship program for from April to July, I will leave all the links you need down below in the show notes. It's all on my website, themediuminthemiddle.com. If you haven't already subscribed to this podcast, I release new episodes every Wednesday, and I would love and appreciate a podcast rating and a review if you haven't done one already. But until next Wednesday, Middlers, when I see you in your ears, I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye, everybody.